Zirin had always believed that humans were weak. His people, the Velari, were an advanced and peaceful species. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for centuries without war. To them, strength came from knowledge and unity, not violence. Humans were a new species in the galactic community, still expanding, still learning. The Velari thought of them as prey, creatures meant to be guided, protected, or, if necessary, controlled. That was why Zirin was sent to study them. He landed on a remote human outpost, hiding his small cloaked ship in the dense forests nearby. From there, he observed the human colony, watching how they lived. At first, everything seemed normal. Humans laughed, worked, and ate together. They built machines, fixed broken structures, and even played games. But then, Zirin saw something that changed everything. One evening, a group of 5 humans left the colony, carrying weapons. Zirin followed them silently, using his advanced technology to stay hidden. The humans moved with purpose, scanning the area, speaking in low voices. They were hunting. Zirin was confused. Most prey creatures only hunted weak animals for food. But these humans were tracking something dangerous, something big. Then Zirin heard the roar. A massive alien beast, the size of a transport ship, emerged from the trees. Its black scales shone under the moonlight, and its 4 red eyes locked onto the humans. Zirin felt a chill run through his body. The creature was a Dravok, a predator that even the Velari feared. It had razor-sharp claws, a mouth full of jagged teeth, and a tail that could crush bones. It should have been the end for the humans. But they did not run. Instead, the human leader, a tall man with a scar on his face, gave a short command. Spread out. Stay calm. The humans moved like a pack of hunters. 2 circled to the left, 2 to the right. The leader stood in the center, his weapon steady. The Dravok roared again in charge. Zirin expected panic, screaming, desperate attempts to escape. Instead, the humans acted with cold precision. One of them fired a shot at the Dravok's eye, blinding it on one side. Another threw an explosive device near its feet, forcing it to stumble. The leader dodged its massive claws by inches and fired a single shot into its throat. The Dravok howled in pain, swinging wildly. One human was thrown into a tree, but before the creature could finish him off, the others attacked again. Zirin watched in horror as the humans wore the beast down, one precise strike at a time. They did not fight with desperation. They fought with strategy. Finally, the Dravok collapsed, gasping for breath. The leader stepped forward and fired one last shot, straight into its skull. Silence filled the air. The humans stood over their kill, breathing hard but unharmed. They spoke in calm voices, checking on each other. Then one of them laughed. Zirin's mind spun. Why were they laughing? The humans did not seem relieved or scared. They seemed satisfied, as if they had enjoyed the hunt. Zirin stayed hidden, his heart pounding. Everything he knew about humans was wrong. They were not prey. They were not weak. They were hunters. No, they were something worse. They were predators who hunted for sport. Zirin had studied hundreds of species across the galaxy. Every advanced race avoided violence unless necessary. But humans, they embraced it. They didn't just survive danger. They became the danger. For the first time in his life, Zirin felt true fear. He had to warn the Velari High Council. If they still believed humans were weak, they would not survive the truth. Zirin sat in his ship, hands shaking as he replayed the scene over and over in his mind. The humans had faced a Dravok, one of the deadliest creatures in the known galaxy. And they had not just survived. They had hunted it, outmaneuvered it, and killed it with terrifying precision. Even more disturbing, they had enjoyed it. The Velari scientist had spent his entire career studying new species, categorizing them based on their behavior and survival strategies. Every intelligent race he had encountered followed the same patterns: avoidance of conflict, cooperation for survival, or, at most, calculated self-defense. But humans, they didn't just react to threats. They sought them out. Zirin pulled up his recordings and prepared a report for the Velari High Council. They had to know the truth. If they still believed humans were prey, they were making the deadly mistake. Before sending the message, he hesitated. Would they even believe him? The Velari were an old and wise race, but they had become complacent. Their power had not been tested for centuries. Would they see the humans for what they truly were? Or would they dismiss his warning, believing that no primitive species could ever be a real threat? Zirin needed more evidence. He had to get closer. 2 days later, he found himself in the human colony's central outpost, disguised as a minor alien trader. His technology masked his true appearance, making him blend in among the other non-human visitors. The colony was thriving. Humans and aliens worked together, traded goods, and exchanged knowledge. At first glance, everything seemed normal. But Zirin could not forget what he had seen in the forest. He knew there was a darker side to these creatures, something hidden beneath their friendly words and warm smiles. He walked through the marketplace, listening carefully to their conversations. He heard stories of human explorers surviving impossible conditions, soldiers holding the line against overwhelming odds, and even civilians defending their homes with nothing but makeshift weapons. Then he heard something that made his blood run cold. "Did you hear about the Velari scouting fleet?" one human asked another. "Yeah, they think we don't know they're watching us." Zirin froze. The humans knew about the Velari surveillance. That should have been impossible. "They're testing us," the first human said, "trying to figure out if we're weak." The second human smirked. "Then we'll show them exactly what happens when someone underestimates us." Zirin felt a wave of panic. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. The humans knew what was happening. They weren't afraid. They were waiting. That night, Zirin followed a group of human soldiers as they prepared for an unknown mission. He stayed hidden, using his cloaking device to observe from a safe distance. The leader of the unit, a woman named Captain Reyes, stood before her team, her expression serious. "Command believes the Velari will make contact soon," she said. "We all know how this goes. They act like they come in peace, but the moment they think we're weak, they'll try to control us." A younger soldier scoffed. "Let them try." Captain Reyes nodded. "That's why we're preparing. If they come as friends, we welcome them. If they come as masters," she smiled coldly, "we remind them who we are." The soldiers chuckled, some cracking their knuckles, others adjusting their weapons. There was no fear in their eyes, only confidence. Zirin's hands trembled. The Velari had miscalculated. Humans weren't just strong. They expected conflict. They were prepared for it. And worst of all, they were ready to win. Back in his ship, Zirin sent his urgent report to the Velari High Council. His message was clear. Humans are not prey. They are hunters. And if we challenge them, we will not survive. But deep down, he feared it was already too late. The humans had seen the Velari's first move. Now, it was their turn. The Velari High Council received Zirin's report in silence. The Grand Chamber, filled with the most powerful and intelligent minds of their species, was rarely a place of emotion. Yet, as they reviewed the footage of humans hunting the Dravok and listened to Zirin's analysis, an uneasy tension settled over them. Chancellor Valen, the oldest among them, finally spoke. "You claim these humans are predators, that they are more dangerous than we assumed." Zirin stood before them, his hands clenched behind his back. "Not just dangerous, Chancellor. They are unlike any species we have encountered. They do not fight for survival alone. They fight because they enjoy it." Murmurs spread across the chamber. Some dismissed his words as paranoia. Others, those who had studied past conflicts, listened more carefully. High Counselor Drilos, one of the few who had once served in the Velari military before their era of peace, narrowed his eyes. "We have dealt with warrior species before, The Zorak, the Kaltiri, even the Tovari, all of them fought wars before they understood the value of unity. Zarin shook his head. With respect, counselor, those species fought for resources, for territory, for survival. Humans fight with tactics, with patience. They do not fear war. They do not avoid it. They become it. A moment of silence passed before Chancellor Valen sighed. We cannot act on fear alone. We must test them. See how they respond. Zyron's stomach twisted. You mean provoke them? Valem's gaze was calm, unreadable. A simple display of power. A gentle reminder that the Velari are their superiors. Zyron wanted to argue, to beg them to reconsider. But the decision had already been made. The Velari would act. And they had no idea what they were walking into. Days later, the Velari fleet arrived near the human colony. Their ships were sleek, silver, and vast, symbols of their technological superiority. They did not come with weapons drawn. Not yet. Instead, they came as enforcers of peace. A diplomatic message was sent, announcing the Velari's presence and their intention to establish order over the human expansion. They spoke of unity, of guidance, of how young species often needed the wisdom of the elder races. For a long time, there was no response. Then, a single human warship entered orbit. Compared to the Velari fleet, it was smaller, rougher in design, a ship built for war rather than beauty. Yet, Zarin felt a deep unease as he watched it move with precise efficiency. The humans finally responded. A transmission flickered to life on the Velari flagship's main display. A human officer stood before them, clad in dark military armor. His expression was unreadable, his voice calm. We acknowledge your presence. State your purpose. The Velari diplomat, a woman named Soraya, smiled gently. We come in peace to ensure stability in this region. Your people are young, inexperienced with galactic affairs. We offer guidance, protection. The human's expression did not change. Protection. From what? Soraya blinked. From the dangers of the galaxy. There are many threats beyond your understanding. You may not be ready to face them. There was a pause. Then the human smiled. A slow, knowing expression that sent a chill through Zyron's spine. You assume we don't already know the dangers. The human leaned forward. You assume we are the ones who need protection. Before Soraya could respond, another voice interrupted. Multiple human ships entering the system. The Velari officers turned to their monitors. One by one, human warships decloaked from hidden positions. Their fleet had been there all along waiting. The humans had known the Velari were coming, and they had set a trap. Soraya's calm demeanor faltered. This is unnecessary. We mean no harm. The human commander's expression remained neutral. Then leave. Soraya hesitated. Velari diplomacy had always worked before. They had tamed aggressive species with words, with promises of peace and prosperity. But the humans did not look eager for peace. They looked amused. Chancellor Valen's voice came through the command channel. We cannot retreat. We must remind them who holds true power. Zarin clenched his fists. No, Chancellor. That is exactly what they want. But the order had been given. The Velari ships activated their energy barriers, a subtle but clear message of dominance. Not an attack, but a warning. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the human ships opened fire. Zarin barely had time to react as explosions erupted across the Velari fleet. Human weapons were not the raw energy-based technology of the Velari, but kinetic, brutal, and efficient. Their artillery tore through energy shields as if they were nothing. The humans had studied them. They had planned for this. On the main screen, the human commander's voice came through, calm as ever. We are not prey. The transmission cut out. The battle had begun. And the Velari were not ready. Zyron had never seen a battle unfold so quickly. The Velari fleet, renowned for its advanced shielding and energy-based weaponry, was breaking apart within minutes. The humans fought with brutal efficiency. Their ships did not move like prey fleeing from a predator. They moved like hunters closing in for the kill. Their weapons were not elegant beams of energy, but raw, devastating projectile cannons that ripped through Velari defenses like paper. The Velari had always relied on their shields, believing them to be impenetrable. But the humans had studied them, adapted, and found their weakness. Instead of trying to burn through the barriers, they used high-speed kinetic rounds, slug weapons that transferred pure force upon impact. The shields absorbed energy, but they had never been designed to withstand momentum. Zirin watched in horror as ship after ship shattered under the relentless assault. "We're losing formation," a Velari officer shouted. Chancellor Valen's voice came through the command channel, tense but steady. "Regroup. Do not engage recklessly. These humans must be taught their place." But it was too late for tactics. The humans weren't fighting for survival. They were fighting to dominate. Zirin's ship, smaller and built for research rather than war, had been untouched so far. He saw the chaos unfolding around him and realized something chilling. The humans were holding back. They had enough firepower to wipe out the entire Velari fleet, yet they were taking their time, disabling ships rather than destroying them outright. This wasn't a battle. This was a warning. Inside the lead human warship, Captain Reyes stood calmly, observing the battlefield. Her officers awaited orders, ready to escalate, but she did not give them. "Status?" she asked. Her second in command, a man named Cole, grinned. "Velari fleet is in full retreat formation. Their ships weren't built for a fight like this." Reyes nodded. "I didn't think they'd break so fast." Cole smirked. "Guess they never met a species like us." Reyes exhaled, watching as the Velari struggled to retreat. "Let them run. They'll remember this." Cole hesitated. "We're really letting them go." Reyes nodded. "For now." The humans had sent their message. If the Velari returned, they would not be so merciful next time. Zirin's ship drifted in the chaos, his heart pounding. He had tried to warn the High Council, but they hadn't listened. Now they knew. The Velari had come to tame a young species. Instead, they had awakened a monster. Velari ships were falling back, their once proud fleet reduced to fleeing survivors. Zirin's screen flickered with desperate messages, requests for orders, pleas for escape routes, confused officers demanding to know how this was happening. Zirin knew the answer. The humans had evolved in a world of conflict. Every challenge, every war, every struggle had shaped them into the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. And the worst part, this was only the beginning. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. The once proud Velari fleet, shattered and humiliated, limped through the vast expanse of space, retreating to their homeworld. Ships that had once symbolized order and control were now scared wrecks, barely holding together. Zirin sat alone in his quarters, staring at the screen in front of him. The High Council had not summoned him yet, but he knew they would. His warning had been ignored, and now they had paid the price. The humans had given them a chance to leave. They had held back. But why? Zirin knew the answer. The humans wanted the Velari to remember this day. They weren't conquerors. They weren't tyrants. They were hunters. And the Velari had just entered their territory. Back on the Velari homeworld, the High Council chamber was in chaos. Arguments filled the Grand Hall as leaders and strategists debated their next move. "We cannot let this stand," one counselor roared. "They humiliated us." Another added, "If we do nothing, we will look weak." "And what do you suggest?" Councillor Dralos, one of the few voices of reason, spoke sharply. "Attack them again. You saw what happened. They knew we were coming. They were ready." Chancellor Valen, usually composed, looked visibly unsettled. "We miscalculated," he admitted. "We thought they were prey. We thought they could be guided." Zirin finally stepped forward. "We weren't just wrong," he said, voice firm. "We were blind." The room fell silent. They knew we were observing them. They knew we saw them as weak, Zyron continued. And instead of proving us wrong immediately, they waited. They let us make our move first. They let us believe we were in control. A cold realization settled over the council. They played us, Valen muttered. Zyron nodded. And they won without even trying. Far from the Velari homeworld, aboard a hidden human military station, Captain Reyes stood before a holographic projection of Earth's top defense officials. The Velari won't attack again, she stated confidently. Admiral Halstead, an older man with a sharp gaze, nodded. They finally learned what they're dealing with. They thought we were just another young species, Rice continued. They thought they could control us. We showed them otherwise. A younger officer scoffed. And we let them live. Why? We could have crushed them completely. Rice smirked. Because fear lasts longer than destruction. The room went silent. We didn't just beat them, she explained. We made them question themselves. We made them rethink everything they believed about us. And that doubt, it will spread. Halstead leaned forward. So what's next? Reyes crossed her arms. Now, we wait. They'll come to us eventually, not with war, but with something else. The Admiral raised an eyebrow. And what's that? A slow smile crossed Reyes' face. Respect. Back on the Velari homeworld, the High Council remained in deep discussion. The idea of peace with humans, true peace, was unthinkable. But so was war. The humans had given them a warning, a taste of what they were capable of. And if the Velari pushed further, there would be no mercy next time. Valen exhaled slowly. We must open negotiations. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Not from a place of strength, he added, but from understanding. Some counselors protested. Others, those who had truly understood what had happened, remained silent. The Velari had thought they were the galaxy's greatest force. Now they knew better. And the humans, they had barely even started. The Velari High Council chamber had never felt so suffocating. It wasn't just the damage to their fleet or the failure of their plan. It was the realization that everything they had believed about themselves, about the galaxy, was wrong. Zyron sat among the advisors, his hands clenched into fists as the council debated their next move. The humans had left them alive, but the meaning behind that mercy was clear. Remember this moment. Learn from it. Or next time, there will be no escape. Chancellor Valen, who had always spoken with confidence, now looked weary. We have two choices, he said at last. We can attempt to rebuild and prepare for another confrontation. Or we can try to understand them. Understand, one counselor scoffed. They are war-driven savages, predators that. No, Zyron interrupted, his voice steady but firm. They are not mindless killers. If they were, none of us would be here right now. Silence fell over the chamber. They held back, Zyron continued. They studied us before we even knew they existed. They planned for our attack, but instead of wiping us out, they chose to send a message. Drillos, the former military officer, leaned forward. And what do you think that message was? Zyron met his gaze. They were telling us, we see you. We are not your prey. And we do not fear you. Valen rubbed his temples. So what do we do now? Zyron took a deep breath. We do something the Velari have never done before. The chamber waited. We send an envoy, Zyron said, to Earth. 3 weeks later, human territory. A single Velari diplomatic vessel, escorted by an unarmed civilian transport, arrived in orbit around Earth. Unlike the first time Velari ships had entered human space, there were no hidden warships, no threats of dominance. This time, they came to talk. Zyron stood at the viewport, staring down at the blue and green planet below. It was beautiful, vibrant, a world that had birthed the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The humans had granted them permission to land, but under strict conditions. No weapons, no hidden technology. And most importantly, no arrogance. As Xiron and his delegation descended, a message came through. The human voice was calm, unreadable. "You wanted to understand us," the voice said. "Now's your chance." The landing site was a massive human facility, heavily fortified yet open, a sign of both strength and trust. Xiron stepped onto solid ground, his heart pounding. Waiting for him was Captain Rice, the same human who had commanded the fleet that shattered the Velari forces. She stood with arms crossed, flanked by soldiers, their expressions unreadable. "You came," Rice said, tilting her head slightly. "We did," Xiron replied. "We wish to learn." Rice smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Good." She turned, gesturing for them to follow. "Because you have a lot to learn." And with that, the first real conversation between the Velari and humanity began. Xiron had expected tension. He had expected hostility. He had even prepared for deception, for the humans to use this meeting as a trap, a show of dominance. What he hadn't expected was curiosity. As the Velari delegation was led deeper into the human facility, Xiron observed everything. The architecture was practical, efficient, designed for function rather than aesthetics. Soldiers stood at attention, not as mindless enforcers, but as hunters assessing their surroundings. But what struck Xiron most was how calm they were. The humans were not afraid. He had seen other species try to mask their fear before, but this was different. It wasn't bravado. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. They knew exactly who they were. And that, more than anything, made them terrifying. Rice led them into a vast chamber. At the center, a large table was set, with monitors displaying information about both human and Velari history. The room was not a war room. It was a place of discussion, a clear message that this meeting was not just about threats. It was about something more. Xiron and his delegation took their seats. The humans remained standing. "We studied you," Rice said, breaking the silence, "long before you ever knew about us." Xiron met her gaze. "We did the same." A flicker of amusement crossed Rice's face. "And yet, you miscalculated." Xiron clenched his jaw, but nodded. "Yes, we thought you were prey." Rice leaned forward slightly. "And now?" Xiron exhaled. "Now we understand. You are hunters, but not just of food or of enemies." Rice gestured for him to continue. "You hunt challenges," Xiron said, his voice steady. "You seek out the unknown. You adapt, you overcome, you conquer not just with weapons, but with understanding." Rice smiled. "Now you're getting it." A human officer placed a datapad on the table, its screen displaying recorded footage of past human conflicts, wars, survival against impossible odds, innovations made under pressure. "You see, Xiron," Rice continued, "we don't start wars for no reason. But when war comes to us, we finish it." Xiron's delegation shifted uncomfortably, but he held his ground. "Then why let us live?" Rice sat down at last, her expression unreadable. "Because fear fades. Destruction ends, but respect lasts forever." Xiron felt the weight of her words. The Velari had come here expecting to either submit or fight again. But instead, the humans had offered something far more dangerous. A relationship, not of dominance, not of servitude, but of equals. The talks lasted for hours. There was no deception, no false kindness, only truth. The humans did not see the Velari as rulers, but neither did they see themselves as conquerors. They saw a galaxy filled with challenges, and to them, the Velari were no longer enemies. They were competition. By the time Xiron left that meeting, he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had changed. And humanity. They were just getting started.